Entitled Karen demands my seat on the train and claims I'm faking my disability. Despite me showing her proof, she ends up throwing me off the seat. Thankfully, it doesn't end well for her. Here's what happened. So, I'm a 27-year-old male, and I was on my way home from work on the public train after an exhausting day at the office. I had been born with a rare genetic condition called muscular dystrophy, which affected my muscles and joints, making it difficult for me to walk or stand for long periods of time. I had been using a wheelchair for most of my life, but on this day, I had decided to use a cane to give my arms a break. As I sat on the train, minding my own business, a woman approached me. She was an overweight woman with blonde hair and a smug look on her face. If an army of Karens had a leader, she would be it. "Excuse me, but you're in my seat," she said in a haughty tone. I looked at her in confusion. I had been sitting in the seat for the past 10 minutes and no one had approached me to claim it. "I'm sorry, but I don't see your name on the seat. I'm afraid you're mistaken," I replied calmly. The entitled woman had snorted in disbelief. "You're faking your disability," she accused. "You're too young to be disabled. Get out of my seat." I was taken aback by her words. I had been dealing with my condition for as long as I could remember, and I was used to the occasional rude comment or stare from strangers. But this was the first time someone had directly confronted me and accused me of faking my disability. "I'm sorry, but I have a legitimate disability. I'm not faking anything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady but feeling the frustration starting to boil inside of me. Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Prove it," she demanded. "Oh, I'll prove it all right." I reached into my bag and pulled out my disability ID card, which clearly stated my condition. "Here, see for yourself. I have muscular dystrophy, and I'm more entitled to this seat than you, woman," I said, holding the card for her to see. Karen snatched the card out of my hand and examined it briefly before tossing it back at me. "This could be fake. I know you youngsters lie a lot nowadays. You could have gotten this from anywhere. Get out of my seat," she demanded again, her voice raising in volume. I could feel my blood pressure rising. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I also didn't want to be pushed around by this entitled Karen. I looked around the train, hoping for some support from the other passengers, but most of them were either avoiding eye contact or pretending not to notice the situation. "I'm not moving from this seat. This is my seat, and I have a legitimate disability. If you have a problem with it, you can talk to the train conductor or security," I said, trying to stay calm but firm. Karen's face turned red with anger. "I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm the one who deserves this seat, not you. You're just a lazy faker who wants to take advantage of the system," she spat out. I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. How could someone be so ignorant and rude? I looked at her with a mix of pity and disbelief, but before I could say anything else, she started to argue with me. "I deserve this seat because my legs are tired and I need to sit down," she said, her voice getting louder and more agitated. "You're just taking up space and pretending to be disabled. You're a scam artist and you don't deserve this seat. Move out of my way or I'll make you move." I was stunned by her words and her behavior. I had never encountered someone so entitled and rude before. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I also didn't want to be pushed around by this woman. I looked around the train again, hoping for some support from the other passengers, but most of them were still avoiding eye contact or pretending not to notice the situation. "I'm not moving from this seat. This is my seat, and I have a legitimate disability. If you have a problem with it, you can talk to the train conductor or security," I repeated, trying to stay calm but firm. Karen snorted in disbelief. "You're not going to get anyone to help you. You're just a lazy faker who wants to take advantage of the system. I'm entitled to the seat, and you're not going to stop me from taking it," she said, her voice getting louder and more aggressive. I could feel the anger and frustration building inside of me. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I also didn't want to be pushed around by this entitled Karen. I looked at her with a mix of pity and disbelief, but before I could say anything else, she reached out and pushed me off the seat. I fell to the ground, landing hard on my knees. I let out a gasp of pain, feeling the shock and anger coursing through my body. I looked up at Karen, who was staring down at me with a triumphant smile on her face. "See, you're not disabled. You can get up and walk away. Get out of my seat," she said, her voice filled with smug satisfaction. Just as I was about to stand up and move to another seat, a bystander intervened. "Hey, calm down, you beach. This man has a legitimate disability and he has every right to sit in this seat," the bystander said, stepping between Karen and me. Karen turned her wrath on the bystander, who refused to back down. "You don't know anything. You're not the one who has to stand on these trains all day. I deserve this seat, not him," she yelled, getting more and more angry. The bystander, who turned out to be a young woman in her 20s, looked at Karen with a mix of pity and disgust. "You're being ridiculous. This man has a legitimate disability and he has every right to sit in the seat. If you have a problem with it, you can talk to the train conductor or security," she said, standing her ground. Karen, however, was not about to back down. She continued to argue and rant, getting more and more aggressive. The bystander, who had had enough, pulled out her phone and called security. Within minutes, 2 security guards arrived on the scene. They listened to both sides of the argument and then looked at Karen's ID card. "Ma'am, this man has a legitimate disability and he has every right to sit in this seat. If you continue to cause a disturbance, we will have to remove you from the train," one of the guards said, his voice firm but calm. Karen, who was now fuming with anger, started to swear at the guards and the bystander. "You're all against me. You're all just a bunch of entitled bastards who think you can push me around. I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to sue you all and you'll be sorry," she yelled, getting more and more irate. The guards, who had clearly heard it all before, exchanged a look of resignation. They grabbed Karen by the arms and started to escort her off the train. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for disturbing the peace and causing a disturbance. You have the right to remain silent," one of the guards said, reading her rights as they led her away. I was stunned by the whole ordeal. I couldn't believe that someone could be so entitled and rude to someone else, especially someone with a disability. I'm so grateful for the bystander who had intervened, because without her, I probably wouldn't have got the justice I deserved. I don't like standing up for myself. I decided not to press charges against Karen because that stuff's a big hassle, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction as I watched her being led away in handcuffs. Aw, man, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that kind of ignorance and entitlement. It's absolutely disgusting and unacceptable for anyone to confront you like that and accuse you of faking your disability. No one should ever have to prove their disability to anyone, especially not in such a rude and condescending manner. It's clear that you have a legitimate condition and are more entitled to that seat than the entitled Karen who confronted you. It's heartbreaking to see that some people still lack empathy and understanding towards those with disabilities. I hope you didn't let her words get to you, and that you were able to hold your ground and stand up for yourself. You are a strong and brave person for dealing with the situation and standing up for your rights. Keep being awesome, and don't let anyone else's ignorance bring you down. This next story is titled, "I Do Not Care If You Have Cancer. My Child Deserves Your Seat." Yeah, so this encounter happened about 7 months ago. A little backstory. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with a cancer of the nasal cavity, stage 2. The tumor was quite large, but thankfully benign. Edit. People have pointed out I formulated this wrong. By benign, I wanted to shorten the fact it still did not spread into other tissue. Thus, it was still contained, which is what I thought the word meant. I apologize for my gaps in knowledge. To get it removed, I first had to undergo aggressive chemotherapy to make it smaller. Thanks to the chemo, I had severe alopecia, hair loss, which made most of my hair and even eyebrows and eyelashes fall out. At some point, I had to go bald, but I wore a wig because I didn't want to look like a skinhead / neo-Nazi. I'm 6'4" and pretty muscular, so I thought people would assume. So once after a long chemo session in the hospital, I took the bus home. There's only one bus that goes from the hospital to where I live, so I took that one only to see it was obviously packed. I felt like shit thanks to the chemo, so I asked a middle-aged dude to let me sit. He was very understanding and gave me his spot without complaining. 2 stops later, enter entitled Karen Mother, a lovely whale with an "I demand a parley with the CEO" haircut, and a 12-some-year-old kid. It took her roughly 5 seconds to see the bus was packed, start looking for a free seat, spot me, and start marching, or in her case, trying to fit in the aisle between the seats while shoving others aside, to me. When I saw her, I knew I was screwed. She then stood next to me and decided to talk to me. This is the conversation that followed. "Hey, could you let my kid sit down?" "You mean me?" "I mean, who else?" I'm sorry, but I'm on my way from the hospital and..." "So are we. My boy just broke his leg and we're coming straight from the ER. Her kid was standing next to her without any support, clearly embarrassed because he knew she was waffling. He's standing next to you completely fine. "Look here, boy." I'm 21. "My kid deserves to sit down." "Look, madam, I'm sorry, but I just got back from a chemo session in the hospital and I need to sit down and rest." I then moved my wig a bit to let her see my bald head. The Karen then straight up started yelling in my face. "Stop making excuses and get off the frickin' seat, you frickin' skinhead piece of crap." At this point, I was baffled. I didn't know what to say. The kid was trying to make his mother stop, and we had the attention of the whole bus. She then grabbed me and tried to yank me from my seat. I held on tight, and thankfully didn't fall off. Now enter old grandpa, my savior. He says, "Will you shut the frick up, you dumb clown? Who do you think you're talking to? Stop assaulting other passengers or I will be forced to step in. Also, every dumb moron could see that the dude has cancer." "No, he's just a frickin' baldy." "He's got no eyebrows, you twat." Seems like that really offended Karen because she spun around on the spot and threw a falcon punch in this poor old man's face. I was shocked and in disbelief. The whole bus was flabbergasted and the kid probably wished he'd never been born. The old man then said something unbelievable and a golden sweet karma moment followed.
Okay, that does it. Harassing passengers on the bus, physical assault against a passenger, and now assaulting an officer. You're in deep trouble, lady.
The man then pulled out a badge and told her to stay where she was. Then he pulled out his phone, called someone, and told her she was being arrested. I couldn't believe it. Old man was a bloody cop. At this point, Karen was as white as a wall. The bus had just come to a stop, so she decided she'd make a run for it. But other passengers blocked her way. She then also got charged with resisting arrest thanks to this. 3 stops later, a police car was waiting for the Karen and the kid. The kid told me he was sorry for his mother's behavior, and I felt really sorry for the kid. He wasn't a bad child, but his mother was a hellspawn. The old man then talked to me and asked me if I wanted to press charges, to which I gladly said yes. Took a statement and thankfully was kind enough to let me solve everything on the phone, so I didn't have to come to the police station for questioning. In the end, Karen got some jail time. I think it was a few months, and some community service. I, in return, got a good story to tell, and the sweet taste of instant karma. Right now, I'm riding the same bus home as I just got back home from the hospital after a checkup, which reminded me of this. A friend who's sitting next to me told me I should post it here. He, as much as myself, also couldn't believe that such people existed, but it seems I proved it to him. I should also note that the surgery went well. I was declared cancer-free in November, and my hair is slowly returning. Also, I don't need to wear a wig anymore. Wow, what a terrible encounter you had on the bus. I can't believe that Karen would be so inconsiderate and rude to you, especially given your situation. It's awful that she would physically assault you and the old man just because she wanted her kid to sit down. I'm glad that the old man turned out to be a cop and was able to take care of the situation. You didn't deserve to be treated like that, and I hope that Karen learned her lesson and is more considerate of others in the future. Anyways, if you've enjoyed these stories, check out the video on the left where a Karen teacher demands OP rock climbs when he's actually disabled, or the video on the right where a Karen makes the excuse that her son is disabled so he can grab OP's boobs. Yeah, this one's a bit wild.